It was then after many weeks did they find the humble village of Atlantis, to which was an oasis amongst the Badlands. They found sight of the demigoddess, for she had green skin and a tall stature, with white hair that flowed in strands of minor curls. Virgo gave her son Gilgamesh, who was a child, to this mysterious woman. Virgo never saw Gilgamesh again, as he was destined to undertake serious training amongst this demigoddess's abode and require absolute devotion. Virgo was aggrieved at losing her child, and partook on a long journey in mourning back to her home. It was for many years after this that Gilgamesh trained in the arts to which the Nephilim were accustomed to, and he developed powers that far surpassed any of them, as he possessed a spirit of divine will, for there was no limit in his pursuit of power. It was one day where Gilgamesh grew curious towards the makings of the four elements, as they were taught to him as the foundations for all creation. This did Ninsun respond. The four elements are not the four elements that you see. Water is not the water that you drink, neither is fire the fire that burns forests, or earth being the earth that plants grow from, or air as the air that we breathe. For these things we speak of and are practiced are the elements to which all things exist in as to their form. Earth is solid and does not move. Water is fluid and moves according to the surface of the earth. Air is boundless. It floats freely above the water. Fire is pure energy. It is the final state of all things, and is as such the beginning of them all. Gilgamesh grew more curious to this. You say that fire is the final state, yet also the beginning. This I do not understand. It is below this earth where the hottest fires exist. The highest point for ourselves is to the sun, which also burns the brightest fire. For whether we go above or below, there is only the fire as the source of fire. So you see, fire is in the beginning and also the end. And beyond fire, is there anything beyond fire? There is no such thing as that which is beyond what already is. The cycle of fire to itself again is the entirety of all things. The source of this is beyond the scope of its own existence. But surely there is that then which is beyond the four elements. The four elements can be the 2 elements or the 10,000 elements, if you wish to see them this way. For the entirety of things are only separate for our own understanding, yet the true understanding is beyond our capability in the physical form. And so the 4 elements, how does one even employ them to our own ability? When you understand that the source of all things and the end of all things is fire, you see how we exist in the physical world. That which is beyond, or the all-encompassing, is beyond our grasp, and will always be beyond our grasp, for it is impossible to grasp the infinite. We understand fire is the root of ourselves, the inner desire as it is called. This is the root of our being. The physical form we inhabit, this is the earth. It is our instincts, it is our basest selves. The primary fire to which ignites the material of earth is that which brings forth life. The earth then is who you are in your physicality. Your lust and hunger, this is our primary selves, to which all others are built off. Never forget that it is the snake to which all life comes. What you do is what you are. The fire is the initial spark, yet it is the earth which confines it to its own course. Are we then slaves to our earthly selves? Are we not just slaves to our instincts? It is fair to say that the snake is a slave to its own instincts. The snake does only according to its nature. Yet there are animals who have emotions, and are somewhat like us. For the mother of a baby calf will act in contrary to her earthly nature as a means to follow her emotional bond. The water, in this case, is the emotions to which snakes cannot grasp. It is our emotions which control the earth and shape it into our own. For if you look at dry land and see it solid and unable to be molded, you simply add water and then it can be shaped accordingly. This can hold the water as well as change the earth. The animals who do not employ water do not care for their species. A mother can see all their offspring perish and it brings no pain. The mother of the calf, however, will experience pain, for water connects itself together. And do not forget what occurs when there is too much water, for the earth will be unable to form itself, and so there is no structure to be built, and so all the water is drained out aimlessly. It is important to have a balance of all the elements, and to let the earth hold the water to let it flow. Water I still find confusing. You say water flows, yet I have seen water that is frozen and is like earth. Or there are times when I see water boiled and it becomes air. If you can imagine fire as the absolute beginning of all things, as well as the end of all things, then it is clear to say that the only opposite to this would be the middle of all things. For the middle of all things is water, and all of life has arisen from the waters as it has from the fires. The earth and the air are mediaries between them, yet they are the two forces which bind the two forces of water and fire together in the process of creation. For fire is pure creation, the ignited being. It holds no form and exists independently of itself. Water is pure form. It is constantly shifting and changing with no pattern in and of itself, yet still is intact and holds together. It is fire that is subjectively objective, yet it is water that is objectively subjective. You can say primordial man is fire and primordial woman is water, and they are destined to be together, yet cannot hope to survive without air or earth in between them, lest they engulf each other and die. Yet when together they become whole as one. And so I understand how these elements work. And air, do we not see this as well in our existence? It is air that is completely separate from earth and water, even fire, yet it is air that can move water and excite fire on its own accord. Although air is abstract, it is the function of our ability to see things from beyond the scope of our physicality, for we may be entrenched in our mud of water and earth, and so do not see where it flows and what potentials it can reach. It is the air that exalts, it sees clear and wide, and so the more air, the more there is sight, and so one can build great structures of the earth, and fuel the fires that heat up our basest selves. For one who ignites the fires from above also ignites the fires from below. It is important to ensure the earth is held in proper conduct, for the fire will ignite the earth exactly as it is, whether one is a snake or an eagle. It is why water is so important, for it molds our shape and keeps us from becoming overpowered in natures that are destitute. It is why the gods hate water, for it is that which changes them, and they do not ever wish to change. And so this function of air, is this what makes us different from the animals? The animals exist in the earth, and so do not have the ability to change their natural fire. We stand upwards, and so gravitate towards the air. Their water can change the structure of the earth, yet they are still bound to their natural ways of being. Their fire is the same and will always be the same, and can never exalt itself. Air does not fall to the earth, and so could exalt itself to the fires above, which control the fires below. To the developed human and Nephilim, they can control their fire with the air to which is granted them. It is because of this that man's desires are chaotic, for they let the air consume the flame into a spiral of madness. They have not learned to use the earth and water to control the flow of fire to which the air ignites. Yet once one has knowledge of air through their reason and understanding, can they begin to reconstruct and guide the fire from above. The fire from above will always change the fire from below, yet many do not employ this. It is for this reason why all of us must have control of the earth, water, and air elements, for we call these the three treasures. The fire element, can we control fire? The fire element is beyond our grasp in full. When we touch fire, we are burned and face death, for only earth, water, and air can we hope to grasp, as it is surrounded by the fire and is within our physical reach. Think of how one controls fire by holding a wooden torch, yet one cannot grasp fire fully on its own, so we must control fire by the use of the other elements, which leads it into us without causing harm. It is unwise to grasp fire without strength in the three worldly elements under mastery. Grasping fire without the foundations in place will lead to madness and death. To grasp fire in the proper way leads to magnificence, and so the master can condense the fire into pure energy, completely conducted. Many who grasp fire in complete control end up exalting their body, mind, and soul. Through this, many things can be created. And the humans, are they capable of this as well? The humans have the capacity to employ these over the generations of cultivation, yet the Nephilim have unnaturally been exalted, and so while the elements in all regards are most powerful within them, it is their spirit which is lacking, and so find their own power destroying them. What is this spirit you speak of? Is it one of the elements? The spirit is at once neither the elements and also all of them as one. The spirit is our deepest source. One can say it lies at the center of fire, of which holds no form, yet is still encompassing of all the elements. Our forms are like an onion, with many layers, yet at the root of these layers lies emptiness. It is the same emptiness that encompasses the entirety of the onion, and so it is at once nothing and everything. The spirit to which is contained within our forms is conducted according to the will of God the Most High. It is for this reason the Nephilim are doomed for destruction, as they wish to cut themselves off from the spirit. The soul they have is powerful, for that is their being, yet to cut off their soul from the spirit means an eternity of death, for this is the price of immortality, as they reject the fluid nature of water which exists in this world. And so they are immortal? Yet many have forms that are transient and will die. Does their soul leave their bodies in the afterlife? As they have left and rejected the spirit, so they find their souls immortalized in stone. For they exist as memories, yet can no longer create or experience anything new. They exalt immortality, for that is time frozen and so is stuck in itself. To praise immortality is to praise death, not life. For life is constantly changing into newer forms, while also being singular and whole, and this is the essence of the spirit, of balance between fire and water. To favor an immortal soul is to become frozen, and so what life is that worth living? A tree never stops growing and has never stopped being one. The fullness of our being is in our constant awareness of life, not the exaltation of our permanence. It was during this time that rumor of Gilgamesh spread around towns and reached the metropolis of gods, to which Adam, in his growing madness, became paranoid and obsessed with finding this child. He ordered Kronos to find the woman he defiled, the wife of Enoch, as he believed her to be the mother of this demigod. So Kronos fled to the small village she resided in and threatened her with death, so she would give away his location. She did not yield, as she walked alongside God, and so was utterly destroyed by Kronos in his frustration and anger. At this he set the village aflame, and murdered many of the inhabitants thereof, hoping to arouse the attention of this notorious Gilgamesh, who in the passing years grew ever more powerful and secret amongst the demigoddess Ninsun. So Adam told Kronos that Gilgamesh was certain to destroy him and any other god who may stand before him, for he was destined to overthrow the city single-handedly and become king of the metropolis. Kronos then grew paranoid and lusted for power at the chance of potentially defending himself from the impending coming of Gilgamesh, and so devoured many of his infant sons and daughters, skin, bone, flesh, and blood, as it was customary as a means to amass power in this age. It was several years until Gilgamesh grew to a ripe age and was well fit to overtake the Nephilim, yet it was his lack of wisdom to which Ninsun prevented him from this task. So Gilgamesh grew impatient and would spend his time roaming the Badlands, often combating with the many creatures who lived there. He often came upon the others and learned from them what he could. He came upon a mystic who could float above ground and can control many things around him while in this state. The climate changed constantly in his vicinity, for Gilgamesh grew curious as to these great feats, as he still could not possess such abilities. Great mystic, I have wandered out as a means to distract myself from the boredom of my affairs. Never did I think to come upon someone who was able to perform feats of yours as I have witnessed. Can I ask of you how you managed to accomplish this while not being a god? Gilgamesh has wandered here, as I have foreseen this event, for you are a great warrior and king, yet does your age hinder you from your task? My mother has said this to me as well, for what use is power when it cannot be used? My faith is steadfast, yet I do not see the reasoning behind this restriction. Your age hinders you because only through time can the spirit develop itself. For now your focus has been on the body, mind, and soul, that which is physical. The physical that is not rooted in a strong spirit only serves to destroy itself in its action. It is why to receive physical gifts early on in life is a curse more than a blessing. It is wise to let yourself be conditioned into your body and mind, for you are filled with anger and passion, and so have not learned to balance yourself. Yet I have mastered the elements, have willpower that exceeds any living creature. Surely I am fully in balance if I was to achieve such feats. Do you not listen to yourself when you speak? For you have already declared your limits as if you have achieved all there is to achieve. The greatness of our being is the infinite potential to which we strive towards. To say you have mastered the elements says that you have stopped yourself from becoming the infinite. Your arrogance seeks to destroy you, for that is the nature of this world that the Nephilim cannot hope to understand. So you mention this balance of which to attain. This I do not understand. This world has two forces constantly against each other, for that is the nature of this world. Yet can we control these forces by our will and control of the elements? Positive and negative do we control, yet rarely does anyone hope to balance the two together, for they are consumed by desires and lusts that push them off balance in pursuit of manifestation towards one or the other. That is the root of all evil. When the two states of things are in balance, it is like staring at a clear lake or a mirror, and so it reflects the world exactly as it is supposed to be. Then you become the world as it is, and so control many things. When the world is still, there is only oneness, and no longer do we find chaos in our lives. It is for this reason why good and evil only exist amongst the Nephilim and humans, for they have consumed the fruit of knowledge, and so are capable of manipulation according to their own will, and see what is good or evil, instead of what just naturally is of its own accord. How does one balance between the two forces? How does one even know which one is a force for good and a force for evil? Do we dispel our desires? Are they not useful for us? Your desires are the flames to which spark your existence. To eradicate desire is to eradicate the self. Nothing in balance seeks to eradicate itself. If you wish to find balance, you must train yourself in the spirit, for although your power in this world is beyond anyone else, your spirit must find its balance within itself. Then you can become being. I have learned about the spirit, yet do I still fail to grasp its understanding. It is the nature of that which is everything and also nothing, and that is the duality of things. Yet how does one grasp the center of these two? Is there even a direction to look towards? The center of all things is the center of one's own consciousness. Do not think the center is somewhere out there, for there is only far away from the center. Everywhere you are is the center of all things. When one is seeking to leave that in pursuit of the oneness, they leave it behind themselves and only drift farther away. The Nephilim grasp one side of things and think because of their innate power that it somehow is the truth. Yet do they consistently fall for their own delusions and seek to further drift themselves away from the source of their power to begin with. For this is the true punishment of their creation, and their demise can only be seen through the ever-marching rhythm of time. So I see, the Nephilim are bound to destruction through time, yet time I do not understand, as it is something completely beyond our control, yet we are constantly present amongst it and use it to our advantage in whatever way we can. Yet does time also serve to its own disadvantage? Time is the ceiling of this world, so do not ever hope to control it. The world of life is the world of water, and water can only move through time itself, and so live amongst the water, for it is our essence, and use time as its mean to manifest itself into being. Remember that our center of being is the center of all things. Time is that which is on the periphery of this world. To seek out and control time is to lose the center of being. This I find hard to fully understand. To understand the state of things takes many years. You should reside with me for your training, and then you will be fit to accomplish your tasks. And so Gilgamesh resided 8 years with the mystic of the Badlands, and cultivated his spirit to be wise and balanced. His virtue was magnified, and so he became a perfect candidate for kingship. Ninsun did not worry for Gilgamesh, as she had the foresight to know of his affairs. It was at this time when depravity swept the land, and the Nephilim had an insatiable lust for power that held no restraints in terms of how they attained it. There were female Nephilim who were worshipped by enslaved human men, where they could not control their appetites towards such beings of beauty. There was one of the Nephilim, named Medusa, who seduced many men to her slavery, and she fed on their seed as source for power. It was then the humans called all female Nephilim as a demon, for any man to engage with one would lead to certain enslavement. The male Nephilim were engaged in abominable practices, to which Kronos engaged in as well. They fostered human female slaves and impregnated them with their seed, to which, after 3 months of incubation, would engorge themselves on the unborn fetus of these women, for it was believed the fetus at this time harbored the purest soul befit to consume. Gilgamesh grew to a ripe age, and was both handsome and fit for kingship, for he amassed considerable power of all physical might, intellectual ability, and spiritual prowess. He could conjure up the elements and read the ways of the stars, and can utilize them to his entire advantage. He was upright and just, and never wavered on his prudence. He bade farewell to Ninsun and the mystic of the Badlands, for they had fostered him like parents, and he considered them as such. It was only in his final years of training did he uncover that Ninsun and the mystic were married, yet due to them being of the abominable creations by Adam, were barren and could not produce offspring. Despite this, they loved each other in their own ways. Gilgamesh then traveled back to his home village, to which he found was completely destroyed, and proceeded desperately to find his mother once more. After diligent searching and questioning of neighboring villages, he came upon his half-brother Methuselah, who had raised up his own family in the outskirts, and learned to the fate of his mother, and was aggrieved, for the brothers shared in their discontent towards the actions of the Nephilim. For after some time with his brother, Gilgamesh asked him if he was willing to come with him to the metropolis, for he would grant him many wishes and a valuable estate, to which Methuselah rejected, for he grew more content in a simple life. Gilgamesh conceded that if he was ever in dire straits, that he would grant him food and shelter under no prior conditions. At this, Gilgamesh parted at dawn, embracing his brother, for they shared deep love. And so the life of Methuselah continued onwards, and he was granted a very long and healthy life, out of consolation for the sacrifice his parents had made, for they were taken of this earth by God before their natural time. Gilgamesh then made travel, as his father did, without sword or shield, and marched towards the metropolis to where awaited Cronos, who grew in desolation and suffering at the knowledge of his coming. For at the gates Gilgamesh declared his arrival, and the citizens of gods reeled in terror, and they knew of his power. Cronos was given word of the circumstance, and he proceeded to hide in his dwelling of great magnitude, adorned with gold, silver, and all variety of gemstones. It was there he grew arrogant and enraged. He finally left his house to face Gilgamesh and found his pride. So this is the great Gilgamesh, a half-breed born in the dust of the Badlands. How do you ever expect to defeat someone such as me? For I am built perfect and will never cease to be destroyed. This world is for my own control, and so for you to believe yourself worthy of combating my power is a ruse in and of itself. Who are you, Gilgamesh, to think that you can stand up against perfection? For it was your father who believed such arrogance and led to his utter destruction. Do not think yourself to be different than me, for I am of your seed, and so am your end result. Yes, it is apparent to my existence that I am merely a half-breed in this world, yet does my spirit exalt itself above you, Cronos, for my will has granted me superiority over you, and so you shall be witness to what man is capable of. For I do not wander in a static condition of my perfection, and so am a being which is constantly becoming itself. You are the one who has been dead since birth, and your immortality an illusion, for you will see the truth of who you are. At this, Gilgamesh fired up thunder from the palms of his hands and utterly destroyed Cronos in an instant, as had happened to Enoch. There it was that the Nephilim were much more afeared, and so prostrated towards Gilgamesh, for none of them could hold the power of thunder. Now Adam resorted to his own fear, and recognized the gravest sin he had partook under, and so sought himself to cowardice. While Gilgamesh made his way towards his great and lofty tower to where he isolated amongst himself, did he declare towards the emptiness of his bedroom all the depravity of his own being. At this, Adam ended his own life, and so let his physical corpse lie in the room. To which, in a short time, did Gilgamesh uncover this body of Adam, and then brought it forth to all the Nephilim to bear witness, and they were astonished. For then Gilgamesh raised up the body of Adam with one hand for all to see, and then ripped out the spine and let the body crumble into dust. As the spine was held above the ground, it transformed into a great black snake that Gilgamesh controlled over. It was this that frightened the Nephilim. Remember the truth of what all beings in this world are, for we are nothing without the spirit, and so look to what happens to these supposed perfected beings who seek only to destroy themselves. To exalt domination over others is to ensure death, as it is to usurp good and evil to oneself. For all things are one, and so all things are capable of itself. And so it was, Gilgamesh was granted kingship over the metropolis, and named it Atlantis. It was there that he gave free rein for all and enacted justice in the land. Yet as was customary in the nature of things, did he grow arrogant in his rulership. For many had attempted to usurp the throne, and he was merciless against any who challenged him. He was often tyrannical in his laws, and did find himself allured by many beautiful women, and so engaged in his lusts and pleasures, yet was steadfast in his justice. At this time the humans intermingled with the Nephilim, and so they no longer held opinion that one was inherently rooted in their physical nature, and sought to consistently exalt themselves spiritually. It was during this time when the priests amassed power. Now Gilgamesh reigned in this kingdom for many years, and expanded its cities, for now there were no segregations between God and man, and they married amongst each other. It was, however, at this time that many still practiced the abhorrent ways of their lineage, and drank of the blood of their own kind, and were prone to much depravity. The gods who were destroyed became immortalized, for their phantoms often infected the minds of the citizens of Atlantis, and so many deities began to be worshipped in order to establish their immortality. Gilgamesh did nothing to prevent these practices, for he only served to honor his parents and keep his glory. And so he ruled for many years of a basic sort, and allowed these customs to continue so long as he remained that which was superior to all, and consistently kept this title all of his days, despite many challenging him for the throne. For this was an era of meritocracy, and all exalted themselves to become absolutely powerful by any means necessary, despite ending the segregation between God and man. Gilgamesh provided counsel from Ninsun, who was exalted in the government to provide him advice when needed. There was a man named Enkidu, who was like Enoch, and sought to uphold justice in the metropolis after witnessing the decaying merit of Atlantis. He challenged Gilgamesh in a duel, and Enkidu was defeated, for no one could defeat Gilgamesh. Yet did he spare him his life, as he respected his honor and virtuosity. It was then Gilgamesh reflected upon his rule and sought to rectify the transgressions he let unfold. Him and Enkidu became friends. They saw a golden age of this great empire, and so lived amongst peace and prosperity. Gilgamesh rebuilt the city in glory and no longer let foul transgressions occur amongst his rule. He gave authority to Enkidu, and so they ruled as friends for many years. Yet did Enkidu fall ill in his waning years, as he was more human than God, and so died as he was destined to do. It was from this event that Gilgamesh grew incessantly melancholy and could not grasp the notion of death, for he knew that he was destined for its grip and could not shake its impending arrival. It was during this time he spent most of his days in isolation and no longer left his home. It was there a great woman, who was of the Nephilim, named Isis, came to visit Gilgamesh, and she was absolutely beautiful. She held high power in the parliament of this empire, and so knew Gilgamesh well. She sought to expand her influence and power, and so utilize this opportunity for her benefit. She was in knowledge of his fear of death, and so sought to seduce him, and offered him the reconciliation of immortality. Great Gilgamesh, for you grow older by the days, and find yourself unable to escape death. Even in your great power can you not hold the dignity to which the Nephilim were once able to conquer, which was eternal life. For you it may be too late, yet can your seed be of use to produce an offspring that I can mold and grant immortality. For he will be a great king and reign for eternity, so long as you lie with me. And through this, may your glory and legacy continue on forever, even in your passing. It was there that Gilgamesh grew entranced by this beautiful woman, and so lay with her and conceived a son. It was this son she named Atlas, and he exhibited great power early on in his youth. Yet did Gilgamesh's sorrow to the notions of his own mortality overshadow his joy for a legacy of kingship. It was at this point to which Isis gained control of things and sought to establish her ways, when Gilgamesh grew ever more reserved. He took upon himself a great depression, and sought counsel from Ninsun to what he might do to overcome this lacking in spirit, for he desired immortality and never depart from this earth, yet he knew, after many centuries living, that his time would soon come to pass. She gave him a decree to grant kingship to his son, Atlas, who was of great strength and conduct, and for him to wander the land to its farthest ends, so he may discover his namesake and find what he so longed to search, for it was in the Badlands where he became king. So he took her words to heart, and made it such to bestow his son to be king, and parted from his great empire of Atlantis. And so Gilgamesh wandered for many years, without any sight from man, god, or beast. There was one point he came up the highest mountain, and meditated there in hopes of uncovering how he may live once more. It was a long travel to when he finally came to the ends of the earth, and overlooked the vast ocean, to which there was no land left that he could see. He did not find solace and contemplated his life's end in morose. He was then greeted by a man who was not really a man, who was cloaked in black gowns and of an aged countenance, yet looked as an infant, and he greeted the great Gilgamesh. For Gilgamesh was greatly in awe at the presence of this man, who was not of a man, neither of a god. And he asked him what this purpose was in the establishment of mortal life, that he may live a life so well lit, only to watch it perish, never to be seen again. And so the man who was not a man granted him this wisdom. You ponder at questions that you are incapable of understanding, for your form is transient, like these waves upon the ocean you stare upon. And so the waves establish their great rise and their great fall, but you, foolishly, cling to one wave and forget the whole ocean. The ocean is not lesser nor greater than these waves to which crash upon the shores. For each one arises, some great and some small, yet returns to its source, to be brought up once more. And you cling to one, and say this is all there is. Yet there will always be more, for that which was will always be, because no thing in this ocean leaves or sets foot upon the shore. The ocean will be as it always was, never leaving or becoming more. For you see it endlessly before you. What more is there to gain or possible to lose? So take counsel from this vast ocean of waters, for like your great kingdom, it too will be as of these waves, and cease to exist amongst the ocean deep, only to return once more in another form. At this Gilgamesh was enlightened, and returned back from the shore. Yet did he still grow dissatisfied, for he could not shake the fear of death, and so wandered to the ocean at night once more, when the full moon was out. He approached the waters in an effort to cleanse himself, and was greeted upon a sight to behold, for the waters took shape of a beautiful woman, and Gilgamesh was greatly allured. So you have arrived in the waters in search of life, that you seek the waters which are the all-encompassing, for in the waters is the fountain of youth, and there you shall find your glory of immortality. For it is the others who cling to fire and find themselves cast into stone. They are immortal, yet are clenched in death. Come to my waters, and find yourself softened to like a babe, and find new life. It was then that Gilgamesh grew in a trance towards this beautiful sight and prospect, and on his own volition approached the waters to this woman who arose from the depths. As she enveloped him in her embrace, did he find his form to become supple and soft. His years of experience became subdued in the waters. He grew young to the point of a child, with all strength and form bleeding out into the waters. He only then realized his fate of the return to pre-life, and saw only death. In the depths of this woman's embrace did he, in his weakened state, come to pass upon the heart of this being. It was then he cleaved around the woman's heart, and destroyed it with the last remnant of strength in his body. In this form they died in the embrace of one another, and so he became one with the waters and the water's heart. From this transformation did the Leviathan rise from the waters and fly up towards the sky.